Before we begin, a content advisory. This episode discusses the disappearance of a real person. Topics include a missing persons investigation, possible abduction, and the failures of an investigative system that wasn't prepared to handle cases like this. There are no graphic descriptions of violence in this episode, but the subject matter may be distressing to some listeners. If you or someone you know has information about Jason Jolkowski's disappearance, please contact the Omaha Police Department or submit a tip at tips.fbi.gov. Now, let's begin. Welcome to The Last Known Moment, a Natural Queen 77 TV original series. This is a show about the moments right before everything changes. The last time someone was seen, the last place they were known to be. Today's case, the disappearance of Jason Jolkowski. It was a Wednesday morning in June, the kind of morning that doesn't feel like anything is wrong. Warm, quiet, ordinary. A 19-year-old named Jason Jolkowski stepped out of his home in Omaha, Nebraska to meet a coworker for a ride to work. He helped his younger brother carry in the trash cans from the curb. He walked toward Benson High School just a short distance away. It should have taken him 10 minutes. He was never seen again. No struggle, no screams, no witnesses, no note, no goodbye, just gone. On a residential street, in the middle of the morning, in the middle of America. And 25 years later, we still don't know what happened. This is the last known moment. Before we get into the investigation or the failures of it, I want you to know who Jason Jolkowski actually was. Because in true crime, the victim too often becomes a collection of facts, a name, a date, a physical description, and Jason was a whole person with a whole life he was still building. He was born on the 24th of June, 1981 in Omaha, Nebraska. He was quiet, a little shy, but people who knew him remembered his kindness and his intelligence. He had a learning disability, but that didn't define him. He worked hard. He attended community college part-time. He had a job. He had a dream. He wanted to be a radio DJ. Think about that. A 19-year-old with a learning disability, working a part-time job, going to school, imagining a future in radio. That is not a troubled kid. That is not someone running from something. That is someone who was showing up every single day trying to build something for himself. His family described him as responsible, dependable, the kind of person who came home when he said he would. That matters. That will matter a lot as this story unfolds. Now let's talk about the last confirmed moments of Jason Jolkowski's life. It was the 13th of June, 2001, a Wednesday. Jason lived with his family near North 48th Street and Pinckney Street in Omaha. He was scheduled to work at Fazoli's restaurant that day. He had made arrangements with a coworker named Pam to be picked up. The plan: Pam would meet him at Benson High School, just a short walk from his home, maybe a quarter mile, a 5 to 10 minute walk through a quiet residential neighborhood on a clear summer morning. At approximately 10:45 inches the morning, Jason was seen outside his family's home. His younger brother was there. And in that last confirmed moment, Jason helped him carry in the trash cans from the curb. That small, mundane task became the last verified moment anyone could place Jason Jolkowski on this earth. He turned. He walked in the direction of Benson High School. He never arrived. When he didn't show at the meeting spot, his coworker waited, then left. When Jason didn't arrive for his shift, questions started circulating. Where was he? Why hadn't he called? And here is where something critical went wrong. At the time, a widespread myth held that you had to wait 24 hours before reporting an adult missing. That was never a law, it was never a requirement. But it was believed so deeply, so widely, that it functioned like a rule. And so the Jolkowski family waited. Hours passed. Critical hours, the kind that investigators later said could have changed the outcome of this case. When police were finally contacted, the response was, to put it plainly, inadequate. Jason Jolkowski was classified as a likely runaway. A 19-year-old who had never shown any desire to leave, who had a shift he was supposed to show up for that very morning, who had helped his brother with the trash cans barely 30 minutes before vanishing, who had plans, who had a future he was actively working toward. They called him a runaway. That classification matters because of what it doesn't trigger. A suspected runaway doesn't generate the same urgency as an abduction. You don't flood the area. You don't treat the last known location like a crime scene. You assume the person chose to leave and that they'll probably come back. You wait. Jason didn't come back. When the family pushed, when days turned into a week and it became undeniable that something was wrong, investigators expanded the search. They checked security cameras at Benson High School. They canvassed the neighborhood. They asked questions. They found nothing. No physical evidence of a struggle. No blood. No abandoned belongings. No witnesses who had seen or heard anything unusual. The cameras at Benson High School, the very place Jason was walking toward, captured nothing useful. He had walked into a void, and the trail, already days cold by the time it was treated as a serious investigation, had gone nowhere. So what happened to Jason Jolkowski? The honest answer is we don't know. And I think we do a disservice to these cases when we rush to a clean theory and treat it like a conclusion. The absence of evidence is its own kind of evidence, and what it tells us here is that whatever happened was swift, and that whoever was responsible left nothing behind. There are three main theories. The first, and the one most widely supported, is abduction. That on his short walk to Benson High School, someone took Jason. Whether he was targeted in advance or encountered by chance, someone removed him from that street without leaving a trace. The complete absence of any physical evidence suggests either extraordinary luck or extraordinary preparation. The second theory is a hit-and-run accident, that Jason was struck by a vehicle while walking and that whoever hit him disposed of his body and said nothing. This would explain the absence of any crime scene. If it happened quickly and the driver acted fast, it's possible no one witnessed it. The third theory, the one Jason's family and those who knew him reject most firmly, is voluntary disappearance, that he chose, for reasons unknown, to leave his life behind. The evidence does not support this. His character didn't support it. His circumstances didn't support it. But I'm including it because it was the assumption that shaped and delayed the earliest days of the investigation. And that delay is part of why this case is still unsolved today. I want to end this episode's main segment by talking about what came after, because sometimes the most powerful part of a story isn't what happened, it's what was built from the ruins of it. Kelly Jolkowski, Jason's mother, did something remarkable in the years following her son's disappearance. She took her grief, the kind of grief that would break most people, and she turned it into action. She founded Project Jason. Project Jason is a nonprofit organization still active and still fighting today that provides support, resources, and advocacy for families of missing persons across the United States. For every family sitting in the silence of a missing persons case, wondering what to do next, wondering if anyone else understands Project Jason built a space for them. Kelly also went to the Nebraska state legislature. She testified, she pushed, she made them listen. And they passed Jason's Law legislation that created a centralized statewide database for tracking missing persons in Nebraska. It addressed a gap in the system that had directly cost her own son's investigation precious time. Jason remains on the FBI's most wanted list for kidnappings and missing persons. His case remains open. He would be 44 years old today. And somewhere out there, someone may know something they haven't said, a memory they've never spoken aloud, a detail they've held on to for 25 years. If that's you, please, tips.fbi.gov, the Omaha Police Department, 1-800-THE-LOST. It is not too late. That's where we leave Jason's story today. Not with an answer, because there isn't one yet, but with his name spoken out loud, with the reminder that he was real, that he was 19 years old and dreaming about a career in radio, that he helped his brother with the trash cans on a Wednesday morning and then disappeared. The last known moment is dedicated to cases like this, the ones that didn't make national headlines, the ones where the investigation failed before it even started. Real people, real families, real grief that has never been fully accounted for. If this episode resonated with you, please share it. Leave a review. Tell someone. The more people who know these names, the better the chances that someone, somewhere, remembers something. I'm your host, representing Natural Queen 77 TV. Find us at naturalqueen77tv.blog, podcast episodes, blog deep dives, and community discussion. Always honest and always independent. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and never let them be forgotten.